welcome to an all new, all exciting, all epic, action-packed episode of the Boba Joe Show.
Boy George, more like Girl George. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Hope everybody's keeping well. Ready for another action-packed, explosion-filled, bullets firing, all sorts of wild shit I can't even begin to describe. I'm getting all mushy mouth trying to even describe what we're about to witness today. Or discuss, I should say.
Just remember, he's a commando, not a kindergarten cop, you idiot, and it's not a tumor.
I'm a cop, you idiot. Not a cop.
I was thinking earlier today as I rewatched the film again for the first time in a few years. Like, it's probably the one that's probably got the most amount of one-liners stuffed into the film that are Arnold one-liners, and some of the most, he's got heaps of memorable ones, and like some are cheesy, some are funny, some are just like grim. But I think it's got the most of any one film. He just says so many one-liners and stuff in this film.
One of my favorites, of course, is your name today. Please don't disturb my friend. He's dead tired. Apologies, by the way, folks, because I know my Arnold impressions sound a lot better in my head than they actually
Yeah,
do.
they do.
To you, folks. Awful,
like,
awful.
remember I said I'd kill you last.
Yeah, look, I've listened back to some of our previous episodes where we talked about P2 and the Terminator
like a
and stuff. And my
Arnold.
Yeah, I do awful Arnold impressions.
We all do. Everyone does it. Everyone's guilty. Everyone has ever been on YouTube talking to anyone sounded like a bad Arnold voice at some point.
Yeah, we're talking about Commando, 1985. It's it has to be up there. I would go as far and say after the Terminator and Predator, this is probably the most famous Arnold movie. Maybe even as famous as Predator, if not more famous, for a particular generation.
And it's funny, like it's in certain versions, like in Britain, the UK, and that apparently they cut quite a few scenes, but only like moments. You know, there's a bit where a guy gets an eye cut half his arm off and all that. But the film's actually not terribly graphic, and other than a couple of scenes, there's not that much actual violence in it. Most of it's pretty PG, a lot of it, and it's probably got the least amount of swearing for a Schwarzenegger film. There's only one particular swear that stands out, which is quite familiar to anyone's ever watched our thing.
Come on, don't bullshit me.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. Bullshit. Bullshit.
Bullshit. You said so. It's all bullshit. All.
Yeah, one of those bullshits was from the actual movie. So I heard it today, and I went, "Oh, there's that one."
And it's just, it's such a feel-good movie for me anyway.
Yeah.
The simple kind of story
it's
of the
like
rescue.
a family movie, even though it's a like die, death, kill everybody film. It feels more like the PG-13. Even kids can kind of watch this. That's not terribly offensive with the family sort of movie. That's what it kind of feels like they're aiming at in the kind of age and all that.
Like, at times, I know we'll do our usual jumping all over the place, but at times it nearly feels like an A-Team episode, especially when
it's more like that. It's definitely more cartoonish. He throws a grenade.
You throw a grenade and there's a big explosion.
Yeah, like it's definitely like
dives.
Definitely like influenced by like Rambo and that, and it's kind of like, well, this is like Schwarzenegger's version of a Rambo film, but it's more cartoonish and like G.I. Joe and A-Team and all that, where guys are kind of in the scenes towards the end where he's shooting and throwing grenades, they're doing like pirouettes and they're jumping off mini trampolines. There's not very little blood or any guts or anything like that.
Look, it's like action-packed is an understatement. Once the film gets going, it's just like go, action. There's very little let up. The pace is like breakneck speed the whole way through, and it's a really easy watch. You can just sit down and watch this on a Sunday afternoon, no problem. The time will just fly by.
I love when you get the bit before he has the big action then where he suits up and you see the extreme close-ups of all the equipment and the gear, and like the knife goes in the sheath and he's got the thing, and it's like we had a version of that in the Rambo films, And then we get a faster version of that in Commando. It's cut a bit shorter and it's cut a bit closer. And then we get the fastest, shortest version in like the Evil Dead movies from Sam Raimi's, where he's kind of like making like more comedic version, where it's like like real quick, all those action movie close-ups are showing all the hero suiting up to go and do the big action moment.
When he's suiting up on the beach of Valverde. And speaking of Valverde, last week I did mention that I had a fun fact about this movie, and I would reveal it this week. But then as I kind of thought about it, I realized I've actually revealed this fact now. Like, this is probably the third time I've said it, because we've spoken about these other films before. But the country that this movie mainly takes place in, or at least the country where a lot of the action takes place in towards the end of the movie, it's a fictional country called Valverde. And I believe we mentioned this when we did our Predator review. It is also the same fictional country in Predator. It's also the same country when we did our Die Hard 2 review. That corrupt general in Die Hard 2 is supposedly looking to go to Valverde. So it's interesting that this kind of pretend South American country has appeared so many times. And those, coincidentally enough, are 3 20th Century Fox movies I just cited as well. So
what's the connection there? I wonder, is it one of the writers or Joel Silver or someone's put that in there?
But I suppose it's a handy location just to be able to pull out, especially if you don't want to offend the citizens of a real South American country, you know.
And it's much more believable than Bisono Populous or whatever they had in the Street Fighter one.
Yeah. $1 billion bison dollars.
I could do with a few bison bucks, and I could buy more copies of Commando on Blu-ray, because my version's so budget. It's got no menu, no extras. You put the disc in and it just starts playing on an endless loop. That's all it does, which is not a bad way to watch it.
My most recent one, I should say, it's like an American director's cut, so I was finally able to watch the movie the way it was intended to be watched, and all the gore, and like we kind of mentioned earlier, it's actually not that much footage that's cut. It's more like footage that's been previously shaved off and censored versions
like 2 or
that I
3
would have watched on television. Exactly, yeah. You're talking literal seconds here
like
and
that
there.
Bill Duke death scene you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, it's the Bill Duke impalement that's the real noticeable difference, because when I first watched that movie, that moment barely happened at all, whereas now you get to see the poor Bill Duke getting staked through the heart, essentially. But no, it's so good, man. It's so good, and it's just a simple story, you know. John Matrix, he's an ex-military badass, but he's living the quiet, peaceful life with his daughter,
He's
and
retired.
you got the whole opening montage of him doing his outdoor chores while frolicking around with his daughter, and everything's
It's
just
so
so
good.
nice.
The hand feeding a wild deer. It's so good.
It's so wholesome.
It's like
and
picture
happy.
postcard perfect, and even mentions like when I grew up back in East Germany or something, so they're not hiding from his accent for once.
Yeah, it's actually nice that they have some type of explanation for Arnold sounding the way that he does. And at least, you know, he doesn't have to be like a cyborg killing machine now just to have a voice like that. But of course, it's Melissa Milano, a very young Melissa Milano is playing his daughter. So that's pretty cool to see. But yeah, his whole peaceful existence is totally upended when his daughter's kidnapped by Bennett's crew, and she's whisked off to Valverde. And the only way Matrix is going to get his daughter back is if he does the bidding of these evil men, the corrupt general, and of course his old friend Bennett, now turned enemy.
And before
just a real simple story, but it works perfectly.
And we get just before the bad guys come in, we get the General Kirby, and I have to wonder if Jeff Loeb wrote this, being a comics guy. I wonder if he actually named that after Jack Kirby, or if we just randomly chose the name Kirby, or if that was part of the rewrite from the other writer. I don't know. The other writers came in and had to adapt it for Arnold, because they said in the first version, which I only found out this week when I was briefly reading about it, was written to be an Israeli commando. For Gene Simmons was going to be him in the film, and obviously a different tone and style, but then it got rewritten and changed for Arnold when Gene turned it down. And I have a hard time imagining Gene Simmons from Kiss running around being any kind of commando in a believable movie.
I just could not, like, it would be as believable as me running around doing that.
Yeah.
Essentially, like, he's not the most athletic, or
No.
you know, not that you need to be particularly athletic to be in the military, but he just does not look like an action star. How I would visualize an action star.
I just can't see him doing the right expressions or act. I mean, he's fine. He does some okay acting in 80s stuff. He turns up in Miami Vice and all kinds of things. He's fine. There's like a kind of secondary dude, but not as the main dude. Unless it's a documentary about the band or something, he shouldn't be the main dude of the film.
Also, the fact that it is an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie means that it's going to be written and tailored towards Arnold's style of acting. So
yeah,
someone like Gene Simmons isn't going to be throwing out memorable one-liners, you know, in every second scene. He's just not that type of dude. You know, only Arnold could really carry off the role as it's portrayed in this movie.
You kind of got a short line of people that can really do those one lines. You got like Sean Connery in the first Bonds. You got like Clint Eastwood in the Dollars trilogy and Dirty Harry, and Arnold, and occasionally Sly. There's only very few dudes that could do that like real off the cuff one and have it work and not be too cheesy.
Supporting cast though is really good. Like we mentioned, Alyssa Milano. You've got Bennett, who we have encountered before on this channel because he was in Mad Max 2 with his wacky mohawk and assless chaps.
It's the only kind of chaps you need. Why do you need pants with seat in them? You got to wear them over the top of your cowboy whatevers.
And we've got Rae Dawn Chong. I'm just looking at the cast list here as Cindy. She's actually a pretty good, I suppose you could kind of call her love interest. They do eventually share a bit of a smooch at the end. Yeah, Alyssa Milano as Jenny Matrix. Jenny. Matrix is a funny surname.
Yeah.
It always brings a smile to my face. Of course, you got Bill Duke as Cook. We know Bill from our Predator. Oh, and a brief appearance, of course.
So many people.
I'm looking here. Bill Paxton. I always forget he's there briefly.
Yeah, briefly.
Extremely briefly. He's got like probably less than a minute of dialogue, but yeah, all sorts of fun supporting characters in this one as well. Really make it a wild romp. Sully, we haven't spoken about the Warriors yet, but I hope someday we can actually. Is
he in the Warriors?
Yeah, he's the main bad guy in the Warriors. The actor's name is David Patrick Kelly, and he's like the lead adversary in the 70s Warriors movie, and he's fantastic in that as well. But he's very memorable as Sully in Commando, and he gets a very, very memorable death, and not just a memorable death, but actually the whole kind of chase and lead up to his eventual demise is very exciting. He's a little bit cheeky to John Matrix at the start of the movie, and he's cracking a few jokes that Matrix doesn't appreciate, but he kind of gives him the glib, you know, I like you, Sully, I'm going to kill you last. But of course, we will find out that was in fact a lie, because Sully is the second bad guy killed. He's killed pretty close to the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, after two car chases and a stop off in the mall.
Yeah, very entertaining as well. The whole
it reminded me of True Lies because they end up in the shopping mall.
That's right, and that's right. There's also like a funny moment where we see like a mall security guard. He's like flirting with some ladies, and he hears all commotion happening, and he's like, "Oh, I better go sort this out. Time to kick some ass." And then he goes and stumbles across this insane scene of like Arnold lifting a phone booth with his bare hands and like throwing it.
I was reading some quotes and stuff from earlier today from like film critics and media back then, and apparently like Arnold was talking. I think it was like either Siskel or Ebert where he's talking to one of them about the film, and they asked him point blank, "Is like how much did that phone booth weigh? It's like about 100, 110 kilos. And how much was the actor? About 70, 80 kilos. And it's like, could you lift that? He's like, yeah, sure. I've been lifting my whole life. There's no problem. It's like he really could lift this crazy thing.
I believe him. I believe him. It makes you wonder. Originally, did they have someone else in mind for that particular moment, and then they just used Sully's character because he's actually kind of small and scrawny anyway, so
Yeah.
he wasn't adding
It's
any
so crazy.
extra
Just
dead
rips the whole
weight.
phone booth. Like it's like it looks like one of those. It looks like one of those clear elevators that goes up and down outside a building, shrunk down to a phone booth size, with like a little capsule. So it looks crazy when he just rips it off the whole thing off the wall.
It's crazy kind of just seeing Arnie, or John Matrix, I should say, just running around in his normal, like, he's got his short sleeves and just, khaki pants, and he's running around the shopping center, still like dieseled and muscled up like crazy.
Yeah,
But
he's in some of
kind
the best shape of his life, like movie
oh
on
yeah,
screen shape, and it looks amazing.
this is definitely, it feels like this is more of his or it's at least one of his early normal guy kind of roles. Like, I know he's supposed to be a top military guy, but still he seems to blend in a bit more with the general public than he did in his previous movies when we see him in this. But it's during this whole kind of mole incident that we kind of meet the main the female lead, Ray Don Chong. What's her character's actual name? Cindy is her name. Just refreshing my memory here, looking
It's
at the
been so many
cast
years.
list.
I've forgotten how much she was actually in the film. Like I can't remember the first bit, but she's in like at least kind of like a good third half of the film.
When I was watching the special features on the DVD, Arnold doesn't really appear on them. All his footage is kind of like contemporary interviews that were done at the time. But Ray does appear on it, the woman who played Cindy, and like she absolutely loved it. Like, and she loved working on the movie, and she really seems to have a big kind of, I don't know, a bit of a crush on Arnold, because she's just talking about how it was great, like being able to like squeeze his arms and stuff like that. And it's funny hearing things like that, because sometimes you kind of hear women complaining about Arnold, squeezing them inappropriately and stuff. And now here you have the opposite of this woman who apparently like couldn't keep her hands off him. She just absolutely like loved being around him and stuff. But she
Yeah,
seems like a really nice woman, like who actually has, good things to say about the movie, and actually didn't mind turning up to actually speak on the documentary, because nearly nobody that was involved in it for some reason showed up for the special features. Nearly all the interviews are like from 15 or so years before the thing was shot for whatever reason. So who knows?
Yeah, it's pretty bare bones on most releases. It's one of those films where it could do with more. It could do with like a modern documentary or something, in like a proper thing getting into it, because there's not a whole lot of stuff around about it.
Maybe they didn't think it was just going to be as much of a hit as it was, and just thought, oh, it's just
probably not. They probably thought it was going to be one of those middle of the road films, but it went to like #1 for several weeks in a row and all that.
Like I kind of said at the beginning, I think the simplicity of the story is what makes it such an easy watch. Like there's not like a multiple characters you really need to keep a close eye on. There's no side stories.
And there's no political stuff in it. Like in Rambo, there's always like background, whatever conflict's going on with, there's something to do with the Russians or Afghanistan. There's none of that stuff. It's just like everything's like fairly generic USA. We're not commenting on any particular war or anything like that.
Yeah. And it works to its advantage, because it means that you're not getting like this story just bogged down with like unnecessary information, and it just kind of hops along and skips
along. It's a real crowd
like
pleaser, like watching a Fast and Furious movie, like the early ones before they got crazy complicated, where it's just like, here's a guy, he's doing a thing, now he's over here, and we're excited about him. What's good.
And yeah, and sometimes that's all you need. Like, I know last week we were like, oh, well, Rambo, it works on so many levels. Like, it's surface level, it's an action movie, but it's also a war movie, and it's also a commentary on Vietnam and this and that and the other. Whereas with Commando, it doesn't really need to be any of those things. All it needs to be is what it is, a straight up kind of
there's like a
rescue
fun
mission.
summer movie you can watch with the family or whoever, and you know.
Yeah, like you're not going to be walking out of Commando, you know, questioning whether or not like American military should have gotten involved in like South America or whatever. You know,
You'd be like, Dad, buy me some of those role-playing vests and rocket launching stuff, and the toy line they had out that almost no one ever saw and we hardly even knew existed, except for like few people online have posted images and things about it.
yeah, tell me a little bit more about that, because I literally just found out.
I don't
this
know. I know
before we
virtually
started
nothing.
recording.
Like I think I watched a video last year, like Tony on Analog Toys. He did a retrospective on was it Coleco or whoever the hell made the Rambo line in the 80s, which were quite nice figures and good toys. And then as a side note, I think he did mention about the Commando toys, and most people that don't know they even exist, myself included, like I've never seen them. I did see a couple of blogs that had some old catalog images. There was like a big 12-inch one that looked quite cool in a box, and the guy on the blog said he chased it for years and years, and it can be pricey, you know, to get now. But I don't know how old this blog is, maybe 5 or 10 years old. He found one for like $40 American, and like no one bid on it because most people don't even know they exist. So it's good if you can find stuff like that. But they released a heap of role play stuff. Like, you know, you go to the old $2 shop and you'll see like a badge and a gun, or like a vest and a knife, or goggles, like night vision goggles, you know, like stuff like kids can play with, like little cheap plastic stuff on a flat card back with a fairly flat bubble shell. They did that was kind of the bulk of the line, as well as a few actual like figure toys and that.
Yeah, I never ever knew about them. Literally 20 something
I don't
minutes
think they
ago, I
came to
found out.
Australia. I don't know if they even made it to Europe or not. I couldn't say.
It's one of those things as well. Even if I was, say, perusing eBay or any like website looking at secondhand toys, even if I saw the word Commando, I don't even know if I'd associate it
You
with
would
the
find the
movie, because
NECA stuff that would come up before you would find the vintage stuff.
yeah, but I was even going to say, like, because I, even to this day, I can go into like cheap shops and toy shops and still see those little action, you know, like you said there, it might come with a gun and maybe like a couple of other a gun that shoots like sticky darts or something, but it will say, you know,
Yeah, this is exactly the
Street
kind of
Commando
stuff,
or,
role-play
you
stuff.
know,
Yeah.
Police Force and these kind of generic names.
Or you might
yeah,
get other, like there's loads of other stuff that's just generically like Captain this or Commando that, you know, there's so much generic stuff.
Yeah,
I can get
I do
1985. I can get one for 92 Australian dollars. The 6-inch. Just having a quick look on the eBay. And get them 6-inch. Hang on, I'll go share screen. Let's have a quick. It might go all fuzzy on the picture. We'll bring them up. Let's have a quick look at them. So I'll go share screen. Commando. Let's have a look at them. There he is.
So this is officially
got a vest knife. He's got like a plastic vest, but then he's got like cloth pants that are like, they're so oversized, they look like MC Hammer pants. They're like they're meant to be like a kind of G.I. Joe kind of doll figure, but they're like obviously got the sizing kind of wrong. They got the muscles that arm pretty good though. Like they're good Arnold looking arms.
Yeah, the side profile is a lot better than how he looks from the front.
But why has he got the plastic vest, but then material pants is kind of weird? I guess cost cutting, but like he's got the knife in there, he's got the grenades. It's not a bad toy overall, I think. Like there's a face.
The face could be a bit better, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely got that look of like, we don't have the actors' likeness rights to on this toy sort of face. Yeah, I could get that for 92. I won't be buying it, but I've never even looked them up. I thought I'd get, yeah. So usually it's stuff like this, like vintage toy, Corgi, Commandos. Like that's the kind of vintage toy soldiers, metal soldiers. That's the stuff you're going to find when you look up Commando, rather than
I will say
that toy line.
The NECA one from a few years ago is really nice looking. I haven't opened mine yet, but he comes with lots of accessories and just cool stuff you can equip him with, including the famous rocket launcher, which we see here at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, I got my stand-in. I got my giant 18-inch NECA, but it's Dutch. But he's in fatigues and he's got the same black camo paint on his face. So it could be Predator or Commando or any other military Schwarzenegger film you care to mention. He comes with a big giant knife, and he comes with I don't know, like an M16 or equivalent or something like that that's got the grenade kind of launcher attachment and stuff on the front of it.
I kind of just want to open my neck one so I can take out that rocket launcher and give it to my little Jill Valentine, my Toy Biz Jill Valentine from Destiny. It'd be totally oversized, but I don't care.
I'm gonna play a quick clip here. I've got a clip of the trailer, saying that I tested and it'll let me do it and not doing the copyright nonsense. So I'll play the trailer.
They hunted him down.
You know, Colonel, we went to a lot of trouble to find you.
They murdered his friends. And they took the only thing he would kill for.
If you want your kid back, then you gotta cooperate. Right?
Wrong.
Now, somewhere, somehow, someone's gonna pay.
Do you think that he is going to give us any problems?
You'll do exactly as he's told.
Hasta luego, fellas.
You're a funny guy, Sully. That's why I'm going to kill you last.
Are you gonna tell me what's going on or what?
No. Don't disturb my friend. He's dead tired. What are you doing?
Helping you get her back.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
If it's a mission no man can survive, he's the man for the job. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Commando.
Let's party.
Awesome trailer. And like nowadays you watch movie trailers and they show you just tiny little bits of stuff and try and tease you. This one, they're like, we're going to cram all the cool bits in and you're going to go fucking watch this movie whether you want to or not.
Yeah, we're gonna show you some of the best one-liners and best moments, and you're gonna fucking go out of your way to watch this, and you're gonna. There's
no guessing like, oh, what kind of film was this? Is it a romance or a comedy? It's like, no, there's gonna be lots of action and explosions.
Yeah, it sums up perfectly what the movie's about. You know exactly what you're going into, and people are probably listening to this going, oh, well, duh, that's what a trailer is supposed to do. But no, you'd actually be surprised. A modern trailers often just suck. And
they're just teasers. They show you virtually nothing. Yeah. And it's like they're afraid to actually commit to showing you what the film's about. And that's a whole other thing, really, where sometimes the company that's paid to make the trailer just completely represents movies. It even pisses off the directors and people involved in the movie.
I have to say, character Cindy, she looks amazing, gorgeous looking woman. I can't really think of other stuff I've even seen her in, though, apart from this movie. I just wonder what comes up when you actually... Because I'm just kind of thinking there, like, you'd think that she would have been... Okay, so she's in The Color Purple. That's a fairly famous film.
Nice.
And... I literally recognize no other movies in this list. Okay, so apart from Commando and The Color Purple, oh no, she's in Soul Man. I've heard of Soul Man.
So it makes her an interesting, like, support character because it's not a typical role. She's kind of like, first she's getting kidnapped, so it's like, oh, she's going to be like a victim or something, you know, like someone's getting kidnapped in a bad situation. But then she tries to get herself out of it. She's proactive and calls the security guards and tries to get away from him. But then she's like, oh, wait, I believe a story about the girlfriend, his daughter's going to get killed and this man's obviously bad. I'm going to help him. And she ends up nearly murdering one of the security guards in the wall by shoving him down some stairs. And then she fires the bloody rocket launcher at the police van when they pick him up from the ammo store and all that they rob. So her character really changes and kind of surprises you. And then she's not like a helpless, refreshingly, she's not a helpless damsel in distress. She's always got her own kind of agency in the film. We see it, he sees it at the airport, so we know she's works or has something to do with the airport. And we find out she's studying to do her pilot license. So that comes into it later on. They take off in that seaplane and she's able to like fly that. And you think, why isn't he? At first I'm like, hang on, isn't he the military guy? Why isn't he flying the plane? And then I went, oh no, they mentioned earlier she was starting to become a pilot.
Yeah,
she has things to do. So she's a good character.
She is a good character because it's not just the damsel in distress. She's actually playing like a useful role, and she's gonna help him get his kid back as well.
But I'm surprised because there's times where it's like, get away from this. You think he's a maniac, get away from him. And then she's like, but now she's got back to him again.
Yeah, by the end, she's very smitten with him. You get the feeling that maybe Jenny Matrix just got a new mommy. I think there's going to be a happily ever after type
I feel
situation.
like there was never a sequel, but I feel like if they could have had one, and maybe they're together or married, but then it's like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and she's secretly also in the CIA or doing some other side gig at like as well, and they both had their own action moments. That would be kind of fun.
But it's a cool, like even like drilling into the story a little bit. It is pretty cool that the opening kind of sequences we're seeing in the movie, it's all of John Matrix's ex-team members being knocked off. So you see there's one guy who gets like, he's assassinated, putting the bins out. Then there's another guy who gets, he's like, he runs a car dealership, but then Bill Duke like goes to test drive the car and he like runs him over and like crashes the car.
So he was one of the guys. I'm not sure if he was one of the guys or not, or if he just randomly wanted that car.
Yeah, I think he was one of the guys.
Because they mentioned when the General Kirby comes in as like the murdering your old guys, and he lists them off, and he lists what's his name, the main Aussie bad guy,
Dennis,
he lists him, and they do show his boat getting blown up. You see, they cuts to him on a boat, and then the boat blows up, and think, oh, he's dead, and you think he's dead until later in the film he shows up again.
Yeah, it's a really nice kind of setup to what we're about to get. Yeah, Bennett going to real trouble faking his own death, you know. He doesn't want John Matrix to know it's him that's behind everything, because he knows he's gonna fuck him up if he ever gets to him.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the guy who rewrote, who did the rewritten version for Arnold, up from the Jeff Loeb kind of previous version, said the Vernon Wells character who is plays one of the ex whatever military group they are. I can't remember. It's called Commando, but I don't know if they're all from the same group or not, or different ranks. I've got no idea. They don't really tell you. They just know that they're all combat proficient dudes who've been on various missions, and they tell that character's like kind of obsessed with them, where he wants to kill him, but he's also in love with them. Like, and it is intentionally like homoerotic at the end with some of the lines of the film.
Totally. I'm like, I don't know why it made me. It's because I read your name again, and it made me laugh because we watched it in the trailer. But when he does the please don't disturb my friend, he's dead, tired this. I don't. Like, it's just so. But even the way, like when they're getting onto the plane together, they're almost acting kind of coupley. Obviously, it's because Arnold is there under duress, and this guy's got he's minding them. But they're so close together, it's almost like they're a couple, like getting onto the plane, and they're wearing like they're kind of like the guy who's kind of got Arnold, like he's like wearing like a straw hat. They just look like such. Yeah. It's almost like the way he looks in the Running Man.
Could be like Stanley from The Office or something, like the way he's dressed. Yeah, like going on his trip to Florida.
In fact, now that I think about it, so we've talked about Bennett, we've talked about that tall black guy. Sully, the little Sully, also has a really unique style as well. He looks like he could be like a mini Miami pimp or something with his little suit. He
both of those guys, I thought they just look like real dudes you would see on like Miami Vice week to week as like some scumbag dealers or something.
If you were to see then, like if you were like, because you never see it really on screen, but if you were to see Bennett and all the bad guys lined up, it would look like some weird like village people kind of.
Yeah, it would. Because the one of the first guys he kills at the start, is like, I think he's in bed with his wife or whatever, and it looks like one of George's old boss, like Kruger or something, like just some schlub. He's like, what, that guy was in the military? He's really let himself go.
Yeah, but it's wild. It's wild. And you mentioned earlier when we were talking about Cindy's character, that moment where she, she shoots the rocket at the paddy wagon. But the moments before that, when they're in that gun shop and they're robbing all the stuff, that scene, I remember specifically as a kid, that scene just blew my mind. No pun intended. But the moment where they're actually, when he presses, there's like a button behind the counter that he presses, which opens up this secret compartment in the shop where there's like the rocket launcher and all these like assault rifles and stuff. And you're kind of thinking, does he know the guy who owns that shop? And
I
knows
assume he
that he is
does,
the
because he
secret
went
area?
straight for that button. I assume he'd know, must have known who runs that place.
Yeah, because it's never explained. Because I think on the outside it looks more like a typical sporting goods shop. Would I be correct in saying that? It doesn't necessarily look
sporting
like a
goods or
massive.
guns and ammo, but like, like outdoors actual hunting, not fucking Uzis, machine guns hunting, but like rifles and shit.
Yeah, that just, as a kid, I was like, wow, you could just get this stuff in shops. Because I think around the same time I'd watch like
Just like a whole
RoboCop
armory.
2. Yeah, I just can't believe like there's like these gun shops. Or like, I know that's the way maybe it is. Any Americans watching, you
But
can
I
let
love
us
the way
know.
they cut it. That it's like he's getting all suited up. He gets the knife and gets all the stuff, and then it just hard cuts to like freeze. These cops are in the store that he didn't even know were there. And it's like, well, now what? Shit, that's what happens now.
Yeah, there's not really any stealth involved in the gun shop robbery. Like the
Oh, he
alarms
drives
like
a
going
bulldozer
off.
through the front window.
Yeah. He had to expect the cops were going to show up eventually.
Yeah.
Especially back in
But you don't-
1985, they probably had pretty good response times back
It-
then.
They probably did. And it's just funny though, because you don't expect that in most action movies. The hero's like, okay, I've got to get all the guns and get off the bad guys. Oh, but then I get arrested and temporarily lose all the guns and stuff I just got.
But Cindy comes through, first she kind of botches the first shot with the rocket launcher because she shoots it behind her. Which,
Easy enough to do.
Easy enough to do. If I hadn't watched the movie, maybe I would have done the same thing myself. Who knows? Who knows? Well, I played enough video games now using those rocket launchers to know which way it's supposed to face.
Point the explosive bit towards the bad zombie mutants you want to die.
I know we have a few guys in our social circle who are like ex-military guys. Question for you guys: is it a real thing? Were those like rocket launchers that he had like something that you guys would have seen used at any time? It's a very cool weapon. Like I just think just that the fact that it looks like just a big box on your arm as well. It's
Yeah. It'll be easy to do
speeder or
like
something.
cosplay version, like you like 3D print or foam or cardboard. It'd be easy to like have something.
Yeah, and like Bill Duke in this movie, who of course Bill Duke is Mac in Predator, great character in Predator, and he's great in this movie too. He's just a cold-blooded mercenary who meets a very gory demise at the hands of John Matrix when he's impaled by the broken leg of a table in his hotel room in a very gory scene. But he really was well cast. He nearly could have been, he could have probably been Bennett's role maybe. If I was casting this movie,
easily.
I may have put him as the main bad guy. Because he's out of all the bad guys in the movie, he's the most intimidating and kind of scary looking guy.
And he looks like he's actually probably the only one that's in any kind of shape other than Arnold.
But yeah, fantastic casting there with Bill Duke. But like I said, he gets a nasty that scene. But so much of the first half of the movie, I suppose, it's all the kind of preamble of the kidnapping and then John running around just trying to get his shit together in order to get to her. But everything now just is going to change when we actually make it to Valverde and we see him getting suited and booted on the beach. Because from that moment on, it just nearly becomes like a killathon in terms of him just taking out everybody that's standing in his way.
It's like the definitive action movie over the top 80s. When you think of like over the top 80s action movies, it's the one that just goes up to 11 with like one man killing like a whole army of guys.
And the funny thing about it is, Bannis did warn the general.
He's
that this was going to happen. Bannis is like a bad guy version of General Troutman and Rambo. He's the hype man for John Matrix because the whole film he's
just
like,
waiting for him to turn up because he wants to fight him.
Matrix isn't going to find this funny. Matrix is going to kill you, and he keeps warning everybody what's going to happen when Matrix is finally going to turn up, even though he's willingly going along with this scheme. It's just like.
I get the sense he's just like a maniac who did it for fun, He's just like, oh, what's happening? Yeah, we're kidnapping him. Oh, he'll turn up and murder everyone, then I'll get to fight him. Great. So it's like the day.
And, it's like, I suppose visually, and this is the reason why I kind of said maybe Bill Duke would have been better cast as the main adversary, because even though I really do love the character of Bannis as he is, there is a real kind of visual disconnect when you do see him finally square off.
He's got a beer belly.
He's got a beer belly. He's wearing chainmail and his beer belly's sticking out through the bottom of his chainmail. And even in that moment where, John kind of goads him into putting down his gun, and you're like, dude, do not put your gun down. Like, there's no way you are going to beat this man. Like, there's just
this guy looks like a tree trunk.
Yeah.
It looks like a tree trunk. He was carrying a tree trunk at the start of the film.
Like, not only do you know he's like a killer by reputation, but you have actually served with him, and now you can see him in front of you. And like, clearly he's been kind of keeping up his regime of like fitness or whatever, but you've just been like,
he's like he's pretty ripped in this film. Like, he was at his Arnold was at his biggest in his bodybuilding days in his early 20s, like his physically heaviest and largest for competition. But here he would be a bit lighter, but he's so ripped, and you can see all the chest, and he's got like an 8-pack or a 10-pack, just everything's just like, he definitely did the old I'd say fighter's trick where you would have had to sweat, like sauna and sweat, and you shrink wrap yourself like a bloody walnut, so all your muscles kind of pop out even more. It just looks incredible.
Yeah, it's like a totally different physique he has, say, compared to like the first Terminator or in Conan, where he's like really bulky. He can ordinarily move his arms because you can't. But in this, like, he's fucking shredded. Like, he's just chiseled in it. And like you said, he probably was doing those techniques to try and get himself into that shape.
I'd say so, because he's not normally that shredded. There was a rivalry in the 80s of Stallone and Schwarzenegger with films and that. And although Stallone's a smaller dude than Schwarzenegger, he got more, as he got into the later Rambo films, he tried to get bulked up a bit and get in certain shape. But when you see him in like Rambo 2 and 3, he's like super lean, like lower than 10% body fat. And he said he even got kind of sick during those films because his body fat got too low. But there was a bit of like one-upmanship, like who's going to look more shredded and more, like vascular on screen and all that.
Well, he definitely, when he was bringing all his equipment to Valverde and he was getting ready, like part of his equipment must have also been like baby oil and like tanning lotion and stuff. Because in this movie, he's definitely gotten to like the wrestler treatment of getting like
he's got that Hulk Hogan based lobster tan.
Yeah, because everything, his muscles are just glistening, and like especially during like the final fight, it's like there's no way that's just sweat, dude. Like, you are literally like like you're shining.
They do
you're
two scenes. The first scene of the very opening where he's carrying the log down the hill. They do, before you see his face, they show these extreme fetishized close-ups of these rippling muscles, and it's him just on how big the freaking muscles are. And then they do it again when he suits up for the second time when he's actually basically on the made-up island. They zoom in again on all the muscles and showing he's just rippling, and that's the big baby oil scene and all the weapons.
Yeah, we won't do a blow-by-blow of the absolute murder spree, but it is a murder spree.
I just love the pirouettes and the flips off the mini trampolines. They're just, each guy's like, I'm going to do a better flip than the last guy that just got killed on screen.
One of the memorable moments.
Like, there's nearly a 1 minute credit roll of just stunt people in this film.
Oh, easily. I love the moment where he retreats into like a garden tool shed and he's like hiding in there and they're like shooting the shit out of it and then he takes them out one by one. But we kind of you mentioned earlier about Rambo and Stallone. Like, were you getting like total Rambo vibes when he actually picks up the light machine gun and he's like holding the ammo in his hand? He's like doing the whole like Rambo holding the gun in one hand. Like John Matrix does that in this movie before kind of nearly Rambo did it in Rambo 2, or
Yeah,
he
because
was
they're
the
both out
man.
the same year, and this was out like towards the middle of the year, and Rambo 2 was like towards the end of the year. So they must have been in production around similar times, but so they kind of seen each other's films, but they still had the first film, the first Blood and whatnot, and the general rivalry of Stallone and Schwarzenegger in 80s action films. But yeah, it definitely feels like there's influence from, like, Commando seems to be like it's just a mix of like all the other action movie things that are going on the 80s crammed into one film.
I'll throw out another question for any of our former military friends here. Is it even feasible for someone to be able to do that? Because anytime I watch like other war movies and you see there's one guy who does shoot the gun on the ground and then another guy feeds the ammo to him.
Yeah, it's very heavy.
So would it be easily doable or doable at all to hold the gun with just one arm and then be feeding the ammo in, or is that something that's just like total no fucking way
So
can
it
somebody do that in
seems
real life?
impractical because you got the bloody weight of the massive thing and then the kickback of it as well. And it's like, oh.
And again, maybe if you've got like a Arnold or Stallone physique and strength,
But if you can lift 200 kilos or more, but I mean, you can probably do it temporarily, but if you happen to be a giant man, but not keep doing it all bloody day or nothing, you couldn't like keep doing that. You stuff your joints up.
And look, it's nothing new to see. We have watched Arnold, wield a minigun with ease, and we've seen him do lots of cool stuff when it comes to like one-handing heavy objects. So, but yeah, he absolutely guts his way through the forces of
awesome.
Valverde.
There's only one movie that out on screen kills this kill ratio. Do you know what film that was? Because they tell you on the bottom of the counter. It's Hot Shots 2.
Is it Robo? Oh, Hot Shots 2.
They have the counter because remember it goes more kills than Total Recall, more than like Commando or Rambo. And he's going in slow motion trailer going ooh, with all the bullet shells flying out. And they pile up so high and he's like buried like nearly up to his head on that boat.
I wonder when it gets to the point like for the corrupt general guy where he's kind of like, I can't really take over the country now because my army is dead.
Like even if one insane man.
Yeah. Even if John Matrix was to leave right now, like even if he left me alive, I can no longer enact my plan.
I pissed off the wrong guy. He seems to be like a living actual like He-Man, like that cartoon mixed with those old Greek statues come to life and nobody could stop him.
Because right up until the end, he still tries to fight it out. Like when John Matrix actually gets into his like mansion or whatever, he's like shooting at him with a shotgun and like trying to fight him off. And he's still threatening to unalive his daughter right up until the end. And you're kind of thinking, dude, like you're so
I like
dead.
The daughter
like,
actually, she doesn't just sit around waiting for help. She actually grabs she gets like a sharp bit of an object or something and busts the door handle off so that someone can't walk into the room. And then she starts prying open these boards on a window to actually make her own escape before she doesn't know the father's come to get her, but she's like proactive too, not just sitting around.
Yeah, she's not just there crying or bawling in terror, which would be understandable if she was.
Yeah, and there was a line, she only gets a couple of lines in the film, but when the bad guy's talking to her saying something about her father and this and that, and she's like, yeah, it'll be good when he comes and smashes you in the face.
And when it does come down to the big final battle between Matrix and Bennett, and we do get the iconic "let off some steam, Bennett." Yeah. I know I butchered it.
It's a very dangerous area. This like bloody boiler room area that's kind of like underground of the mansion, and you've got an open furnace with a door that's like just sitting off the hinge next to this like electrical thing, and then steam and water all of this in the same spot. It's a very dangerous place to be.
Total health and safety hazard.
Yeah. She got
Valverde's
moisture
health
next
and
to electricity.
safety
Like
practices.
you think Bennett's dead when he gets electrocuted on the bloody voltage transformer, though.
You think Bennett's chainmail would have protected him from that pipe that went crashing through his torso, you know?
Yeah.
I guess not. Because he gets skewered, and it's all because of his pride. If he just hadn't listened to that pride inside him telling him to put down the gun
Yeah, he
and
could have
try
just
and
shot
take John Owens, he could have just shot him. He could have just shot him. And you know, we would have expected more logic from the man who literally spent the whole movie telling us how dangerous John Matrix was, only for
He's like a plot spoiler. It's like he's like, I know the guy's going to come here and just kill everyone, but let's do it anyway.
Because even like, you know, the first time you're watching, you're kind of thinking, oh, Bennett, he will have some dirty trick. And I suppose his dirty trick is to try and pick up the gun, but he's like too slow and he gets skewered. But still, he
Yeah.
really should have thought that through a lot better, you know. But you know, as I mentioned earlier, though, when it's all said and done and everybody's been dispatched, you know, we see that they're on the beach, they're getting ready to leave, and then General Kirby shows up with the backup, and he's like, "Did you leave anything for us?" And John Matrix like, "Just bodies." But yeah, they definitely you definitely get the feeling it's going to be a new family kind of living happily ever after. Cindy seems very happy to meet, you know, Jenny, and they're all
Yeah.
super excited. And like you're saying earlier, maybe in some alternate reality out there, there's like a sequel where there's Mrs.
Well,
and Mrs.
apparently they planned a
Matrix.
sequel, but like Arnold turned it down. But I mean, you know, just like it made money, like they didn't go any further than we'd like to do one. But other than Terminator tried, most of the time Arnold turned down sequels to things and preferred to do different new projects. But of all the ones that didn't get one, I would happily watch the sequel to this.
My biggest Arnold what if is still Predator 2. Imagine if he hadn't turned down
Yeah.
Predator 2. Even though that wasn't totally his fault. If 20th Century Fox had waited a little bit longer until he had finished doing T2, they probably could have gotten him.
Yeah.
You know, that was just studio greed. It's like, oh, well, we need to fucking start filming for blah, blah, blah release date. It's like, no, you should really wait till you have the main star available and then try and work around that, you know. But Hollywood politics in the 80s and 90s, what do I know about it?
Yeah.
Nothing really.
Actually, it's funny. I was watching the other day. Another thing. I was watching extra features on one of the Terminator films and that, and then it talked about the downtime. I think it was the downtime from Terminator 1 or whatever. Cameron went away and wrote screenplays for Aliens and Rambo 2.
Rambo 2 is a great film, and I know we will cover it someday now that we've broken our...
I watched it last week because we did First Blood, but I watched Rambo 1, 2, and 3 all in a row last week on a Sunday.
Well, look, I'm not going to lie. Rambo 2 is my favorite Rambo. I know it may not technically be the best one. Maybe the first one is the best one, but number 2 is my favorite just for its
They're all good. I think they're all decent films. They're all
brilliance.
very watchable, cool, good action scenes, good production, all that. So I'd enjoy the hell out of them.
But we'll there'll be a bit of a different flavor though next week, won't it? Because we've kind of been in this
What have we got?
this very big, you know, big muscle men with big guns, but we're kind of switching it up a little bit.
We're
now.
slimming down. We're getting more lean and mean, and kicking machines.
So I'm going to turn the table a little bit on you this week, Johnny, because I have picked the last two. So I think it's up to you to pick between Bloodsport and Invasion USA.
I'm going to go Bloodsport just because he's down in the corner there and he's ready. He's like, Kumate, I'll get you.
Ready. Kumate, Kumate, Kumate.
And I haven't watched this movie in years, and I bought a pile of 15 of Van Damme's best movies on eBay last December for about $40. And so I've saved it until like this month. I'm going to watch it again, like this, you know, this week, next week, sort of thing.
Love Bloodsport.
And I have seen it several times, you know, when I was younger.
We won't talk about it too much now. We'll save it. But there is there is a real life story to Bloodsport, but we won't go into the
Real life
details
stories that
just
made the
yet.
Mortal Kombat video game. It was awesome. The end.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So then, if it's Bloodsport next week, that means the week after we'll be going with Invasion USA, a
Yeah,
Chuck
there's some
classic.
big time
We're
action
actually
explosions. That one.
we're breaking a lot of new ground here on the show because we've now we've broken in Stallone. We're going to be doing. Oh no, we've already done Van Damme because we did Street Fighter. I forgot
Yeah, but
about
that doesn't count because that's not a true Van Damme. He's in it, but
Okay.
it's not a true Van Damme movie.
Well, we definitely haven't done a Chuck Norris movie yet, so
No.
you know we're
Good old
breaking
Walker,
more new
Texas
ground here
Stranger.
as well. Yeah, and you know Chuck, he's a whole genre by himself.
Yeah, sometimes he's
recently
missing in action,
purchased-
sometimes he can be found.
Yeah, I really recently purchased Lone Wolf McQuaid on Blu-ray.
Oh, yeah,
and
it's a
it's
good
a
one.
fantastic movie. Almost like an 80s western with Uzis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His movies are really varied. Sometimes they're straight up action movies, sometimes they're war movies, sometimes they're more Western cowboyish, and sometimes they're martial arts films. They're just like really varied.
And you know, maybe it's I'm sure it was unintentional on your part, Johnny, but I couldn't
Yeah.
help but notice, you know, in this graphic I see in front of me, Arnold and Stallone are on top and Van Damme and Chuck are below, you know. And maybe was that a subconscious commentary on where they fall in the totem pole? Because it is
Oh,
accurate.
possibly. It was just the order I made them in, and like I did try switching one thing around, and it just looked better having like the graphic just looked better with them up there.
Well, let's be real. It is kind of accurate. Arnold is probably the big box office, then Stallone number 2, Van Damme number 3, and
Yeah.
Norris number 4.
Although who the
But I
toughest
know it
guy
was
in real life
unintentional.
is debatable. I mean, Norris was an actual competition fighter in the 70s,
Yes.
and whereas but for actual toughness, like I mean, it's not just about who can fight, but like Stallone, the amount of torture he's put himself through, and the amount of
yeah.
stunt work he's done when no one asked him to, when he wrote and directed stuff and did the stunts where he bloody well shouldn't be done, and all the injuries he's gotten, he's like bloody Mick Foley or something, little shit he's done to his body.
And also not to knock the other 3 guys, but Stallone is also, in my opinion, like a real actor with range as
Oh,
well.
he's the best
like
actor
he
by
could be
far.
and you can put him in non-action roles and he can
Copland.
adapt easily and thrive. So yeah, no offense to the acting chops of Van Damme and Chuck Norris, but you're just not quite there yet.
Yeah, I love all these guys, but like Stallone's proper. I mean, he could be another Al Pacino if he wasn't just an action movie. Sort of this. He could do proper serious dramatic stuff. And Schwarzenegger can act, but he's to me he's better at comedic acting and actual family comedy movies than action movies. He's always kind of more wooded in action movies, whereas it's like a Junior or the Christmas one. Like he's genuinely funny, like when he's playing like more comedic roles, not being a tough guy.
You know, when the first Rocky movie came out, the critics were comparing Stallone to Pacino and De Niro in terms of his acting ability. And if it wasn't for the fact that he continued to do those type of movies, you would wonder he may very well have went a different route in terms of being one of those more kind of typical, those Oscar-worthy actors that you kind of,
I think
still,
he's a smart dude too. Like, and he's like he did those 80s sequels like Rocky Rambo ones, and they had long gaps with his other stuff. And he said like publicly and stuff he's written and whatever that he resisted doing sequels to a number of films for a number of years and realized that fans just truly love those characters so much, and that's why he came back and went, okay, we'll do another Rocky because people really love it. And when I kept trying to do these more independent type films, nobody's watching them, seems to give a shit.
Yeah, we can be our own worst enemies as fans sometimes of this stuff. It's like you ask for more, but then when you get more, you don't like it, and then you start complaining that you didn't get something new. But then when they give you something new, you're like, well, that's not that old thing I like, so I'm not going to watch it. You just can't win.
Greedy, lazy.
But yeah, it's all ahead of us. Really looking forward to a bit of JCVD and seeing how Frank Dukes performs in Bloodsport next week.
I watched the rewatched the Amazon Van Johnson show again a couple of weeks ago. That came out about 6-7 years ago. It's hilarious. Instead of JCVD, it's JCVJ Van Johnson. It's like a code name. In the fictional show, Jean-Claude plays himself, playing a secret agent, like a James Bond kind of character. And all his movies are like undercover assignments where he's actually secretly doing stuff in those countries like James Bond. So it's a really clever show. It's only about 6 episodes and it's absolutely hilarious.
And it was a show that I only found out about when we spoke about Street Fighter like a year ago or whatever.
I found it by accident
hadn't
one day on
heard about
Amazon. I
that.
didn't know what the hell it was.
Yeah, next week JCVD,
Yeah.
he's going to be shedding some blood in a sport. And it's not pro wrestling, folks.
We'll catch you next week, guys.
Take care.